In 1923, Henry Hassenfeld founded Hasbro Incorporated, manufacturing toys and games that are still popular until today. Some of its most renowned products include Monopoly, Mr. Potato Head, and much more. Today, the company is known as the largest producer of board games in the world and operating with annual revenue of more than $4 billion US. However, the successes that the company have today didn't come without its dwellings. The year 1995 calls for a time in gaming innovation, from board games to the electronic variety. In response to this trend, Hasbro started to rethink its business strategy and decided to invest its future in interactive games. With the aim of growing its revenue, Hasbro decided to develop a separate division called the Hasbro Interactive, led by Tom Dusenberry, who soon began to show proven results in the company's profitability. However, with unrealistic revenue expectations and constant neglect within the management and communication development, the company soon began facing issues. The first issue is the communication issue. As Mr. Virchia quoted, "I think the way we went about it was emotional rather than strategic. I do not think we really sat down and tried to put together a plan." The fact is Hasbro Interactive was a separate and independent division of Hasbro. Mr. Dusenberry, a general manager, made all operational decisions, including those relating to organizational structure, product selection, and partnership agreements. Although he was tremendously ambitious and had some knowledge in interactive gaming, Hasbro Interactive was his first experience as a general manager, which means that he could and in fact did face new challenges. However, he rarely consulted either his colleagues or other business unit managers and made decisions by himself. Moreover, he spurned any warnings or recommendations of his colleagues. Thus, when, in 1999, some senior executives expressed concern about the risks inherent in pursuit of reaching $1 billion in revenues within 3 years, nobody acted to put a stop to that aspiration. Or, when Ms. Daya, a CFO in Hasbro Interactive, tried to improve the financial system, Mr. Dusenberry felt that she was a divisive influence and the new system was a disaster. Finally, personnel at Hasbro Interactive did not feel the need to consult with Hasbro because they believed that they knew what was going on with the brand. Even though Hasbro Interactive deals with interactive games and not actual toys, this does not mean that it is independent of the brand. Thus, the success of a game may affect the sales volume of toys. Similarly, toys based on interactive games may accelerate brand equity. 3 cognitive lenses. From the 3 lenses perspective, Mr. Dusenberry's self-confidence and self-assurance lie within the cognitive framework. The temporary prosperity and growth of the division made him believe that it will never end. Once his risky decision succeeded, he continued with gambling. That is why Mr. Dusenberry didn't listen to any concerns about the possible failures. He simply denied them. From the trade lens perspective, Mr. Dusenberry was an extrovert. He was dynamic, ambitious, and had strong leadership skills. At the same time, he tended to make snap decisions without either careful planning or consulting with his colleagues about possible negative effects. Besides, this trait of character determines the shift of his attention from bad news to aspirations for the future. Finally, the social lens perspective appears to be the most complicated. Mr. Dusenberry, as well as other managers of the division, acted separately, without setting tasks together, taking actions together, and sharing outcomes. On the contrary, each employee of Hasbro Interactive tried to improve the situation individually. As a result, outcomes were inconsistent with plans. Recommendations. Firstly, there's a need to arrange monthly sessions and annual meetings to set objectives, discuss strategies, and evaluate outcomes within Hasbro Interactive. Discussion of positive and negative results would enable Mr. Dusenberry to set realistic aims and goals. This in return would strengthen the employment relations between the workers and the managers. Secondly, they need to distribute duties among different managers so that employees work in coordination rather than individually. This would prevent them from making harsh and spontaneous decisions. Also, it would reduce the communication barrier induced from hierarchical structure so that employees and managers would feel more comfortable communicating with each other. Thirdly, monitoring activities of other divisions by making objectives in accordance with their plans to maintain or even improve the brand image. This would enable Hasbro Interactive to perform in compliance with other divisions, and that would tighten their interrelation and maybe prevent Hasbro Interactive from its downfall. The second issue was based on concerns on the employees' well-being in Hasbro Interactive. This might be the result of several incidents that negatively impacted on the company in 2000. One of which was that the actual cost of production for several games was found to exceed the projected cost by a great extent. Yet another was that the shared price had decreased by half in comparison to the one of the previous year. Because of these incidents, many employees had become concerned with their job security. This concern might have led to the resignation of Mr. Dusenberry and Mr. Baum. The former moved to Marblehead Entertainment, and the latter was hired by Dial Corporation. Furthermore, at the end of 2000, Hasbro Interactive was sold to a French company, Infogames. After the settlement, Infogames dismissed nearly one-third of former employees of Hasbro Interactive. The combined impact of executive resignations and employee layoffs might have worsened the concern over job security. The feeling of job insecurity can be problematic because it negatively influences employees' well-being. Well-being is important because they impact on the commitment and satisfaction of employees, which in turn influence business performance and staff turnovers. The aforementioned issue of executive resignations is indeed a serious issue, as the cost of finding a replacement is equivalent to approximately 50% of the salary of the resigned employee. That said, the self-determination theory may be able to explain why a sense of job insecurity can undermine employee well-being and organizational performance. The SDT specifies 3 psychological needs as a necessary condition for growing motivation and well-being. They are competence, relatedness, and autonomy. It is noted that these needs cannot be ignored or mistreated without considering extremely negative consequences. Competence refers to the need of individuals to influence the environment in which they reside. Autonomy relates to the desire of one to choose and control one's own course of actions at will. Relatedness is the individual propensity to feel connected to others and to feel as a member of a group. Past studies have noted that these psychological needs can be violated when a feeling of job insecurity occurs. Employees concerned about job security often feel vulnerable to dismissal decisions unilaterally made by the management, as well as an inability to improve their job security. In this regard, the sense of job insecurity appears to neglect the need for competence. This cohort of employees is also likely to concern with involuntary and undesired change in relation to the continuity and security of their employment. In this instance, the sense of job insecurity forces employees into situations that are neither chosen nor desired, and thus it undermines the need for autonomy. They may furthermore display a fear of being alienated from their colleagues, with whom a sense of relatedness has already been established as a result of the employment relationship. In short, job insecurity may undermine the desire of employees to remain as a part of their organization. To enhance the well-being of employees, 2 recommendations were presented to the HR managers of Hasbro Interactive. In the short run, training programs in relation to stress management are recommended, as they serve as means for employees to deal with the concern over job security. These programs can potentially assist employees in becoming aware of stress, learning techniques of relaxation, and improving cognitive coping skills. They are held as being particularly useful in circumstances where the source of stress, for instance job insecurity, is inherently associated with the working environment and therefore cannot be changed. In the long run, we recommend the Hasbro Interactive to establish formal policies and procedures that precisely address provisions to protect occupational health and safety of employees and another stressful incident arise to employees in the future. These provisions would include stress management programs discussed above. Establishing the formal policies allow Hasbro Interactive to inform employees that their workplace well-being is protected. Thus, it will increase perception about future safety of employees. Lastly, the third issue within Hasbro Interactive was the emergence of unethical behavior. While such behavior was by no means widespread throughout the Hasbro subsidiary, it was prevalent within upper management and thus created a significant impact throughout the company. Specifically, many unethical behaviors were displayed over a considerable time span by manager Tom Dusenberry. Throughout Dusenberry's time in Hasbro Interactive, he displayed an excessive reliance in not only his own abilities, but in his creative vision. Despite Dusenberry being the only individual making all operational procedures for Hasbro Interactive and thus being responsible for the financial stability of its employees, and despite the historic failures of systems such as the Vectrex and Hasbro's virtual reality system, Dusenberry nevertheless pushed for similarly ambitious projects whilst utilizing aggressive sales techniques. Whilst initially successful, Dusenberry's leadership soon led to a precarious loss of profit for Hasbro Interactive. Rather than adapting his leadership approach, Dusenberry persisted in his methods. Dusenberry also allowed a conflict of interest to rise amongst Hasbro and McDonald's, a profitable business partner of Hasbro. Such actions not only violated the economic stability of Hasbro Interactive employees, but were in contradiction to the suggestions of higher-level managers whom advised caution in Hasbro Interactive's sales techniques. In addition, Dusenberry displayed a contempt at such suggestions, disregarding advice and financial forecasts in favor of egotistical action. When this course of action finally results in $74 million loss on $237 million in revenue being lost, Dusenberry refused to take responsibility or acknowledge the significance of the loss. Instead, he claimed the loss to merely be an investment in the company's future. Ultimately, Dusenberry displayed both consistent displacement of responsibility and a disregard for the consequences of his actions, despite his position. This resulted in a high financial liability and a reputational cost for Hasbro Interactive. Rather than only taking action when such behavior results in financial loss, Duesenberry's behavior should have been addressed by vigilant monitoring by MR. Hassenfeld and other internal agents consistently throughout his career. In addition, all Hasbro and Hasbro Interactive employees should have been given education about ethical procedure and reporting, so that they may avoid such behaviors themselves whilst also empowering them with the ability to report such behaviors. When such behaviors were reported, immediate and thorough investigative procedure should have taken place to determine the full extent of Duesenberry's action. Duesenberry should have then been both disciplined for his actions and educated upon his errors, so as to discourage similar behavior in the future. In the incidents of continual ethical failings, Duesenberry should have been dismissed or demoted to ensure the cessation of such behavior. This is the end of our presentation. Thank you.